provide these questions? Or if
Yeah, they did.
Is
why? Because they sounded familiar, right?
Yeah,
Similar
right.
to the other ones.
Yeah. So my thing was, and I talked to James, and the reason I pushed it, I just needed more time with the board stuff. But the Forbes thing that we did, and I don't know if is that. Do we know what the status of that is? Because it seems duplicative, right? A lot of those questions are these ones. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, do we really want two things out there that's kind of very similar or not?
Yeah, and more to the point, like for a reporter, don't you want to do something more original?
Yeah, so it's from Forbes. We've already sent that off, right? So we don't know what's going to happen.
It's gone out. Yeah, and based on experience with other customers, they kind of sit on things sometimes, and you don't really know when they're going to publish.
So, which is fine. But what I was thinking, and this is before I even kind of really dug into this one on the data, is if I look at, there's a couple things we're trying to drive for Coupa, right? Indirectly or directly, without being kind of commercial for Coupa. But one is the data story, right, which is this fits into it. Yeah. And then the second is this digital transformation, right? People moving from legacy systems. Because one of the things that, did you see our analyst day presentation by chance? But one of the things we talked about was in the market, and what's happening since we went public is we're becoming more legitimate, and meaning that people that are making a 10-year technology investment in Coupa, the pendulum is starting to switch, or the switch is starting to flip, even that we're the safe choice now. Mm-hmm. So whereas before we went public, it was, okay, Coupa's a private company, are they going to be around? Mm-hmm. And as we get more of these ones like Caterpillar, et cetera, now we're becoming not only the safe choice, but the smart choice. Mm-hmm. So really trying to put more things out there that, hey, if you're not getting on this digital transformation train that's already left, you're being left way behind. Yeah. And when we're in sales cycles, so we sell to the CFO, the CPO, Chief Procurement Officer, and the CIO. The CIO is the one who can delay or accelerate the decision the most. Mm-hmm. And you have two camps, right? You have the ones that are the early adopters where, hey, this is where the future is going. I'm going to build my career on it. And at the other extreme is you have the laggards, right? The guys that have been in SAP shop for 20 years.
I'm not changing now. I'm close to retirement.
Exactly.
What's in it for me?
Yeah, and I've got these relationships for 20 years. So, part of it is trying to put more pressure on these laggards to move, right? Mm-hmm. And that's been happening indirectly because bigger customers are going with Coupa. The systems integrators are, pushing Coupa now. But, this, to the extent we can get more out there in mainstream, this is the way the world's going. If you're not adopting this, you're kind of way behind everybody else. And, in an indirect way, make them feel stupid. I mean, that's not the
no, instill fear, uncertainty, and doubt, right?
Yeah, the fun factor.
Yeah.
So that's kind of one thing that we're trying to do, just at a higher level, is just get more tie off on the CIO, because the CFO and the Chief Procurement Officer now they're pretty much almost always going with us, right? When we go into a sales cycle, we get the mindset of those two very easily or quickly now, but the CIO is still lagging. So that's one thing is, should we talk more about the digital transformation, where we are in the process, where the market is moving from early adopter to what we would call early majority, so that's one kind of thing that we could push. The other one is the data story.
Well, CIOs ought to like the data story.
Yeah, no, they should. So that's why. So what I was thinking about, depending on where the Forbes things was, this one might be better to morph for the Wall Street Journal.
I think he wants to do his own interview, though.
No, we can do the interview, but we can make it
more like that.
We could actually give.
So okay, a couple thoughts. I think what you're talking about digital transformation is great, and my understanding from industry reading is that the CFO and CIO should be really partnering in this, because the CFO is in many companies driving the technology and finding the value from the data, and you need to be partners with the CIO, right? Yeah. But we need to convince them they need to be partners with you. Looking back on the interview from this one, two things occurred to me. One, the interview went off the rails because there were two people trying to conduct it with running at cross purposes. The offer to me was, I won't say anything. Yeah. And A lot was said, and I had trouble, connecting with you and building a narrative. So this got a little bit off the rails. So hopefully,
I actually think this is really good.
We need to fix it in the middle.
I know Chandra had a couple comments, but
yeah.
When I read this, I really didn't have I had a few comments, but maybe there was a transition thing that Chandra was talking about, but when I looked at it, I thought it actually was really good. So this wasn't one where I felt like
it's got a little transition work that I thought his comment was on the mark, and I felt it when I was writing it. So if he noticed it too, I'm like, okay, that's a problem. But also, I just want you to be you, and we'll figure out how to market you. Because I think we should position you as a leader in digital transformation. And not necessarily focus on the laggards. What comes to mind, in any management situation is you have your top 20% who are going to perform well no matter what you do, and you have your bottom 20% who are not going to perform well no matter what you do. We should be getting that middle 60, where if we have someone like you speaking about, you don't have to sell them on digital transformation. They know it, but they don't know how. And they need someone like you who's done it to provide best practices and show them how, show them the path forward. And then you become a CFO that CIOs trust. Yeah. And that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, so that's a great point. The partnering CFO and CIO.
Yeah, so I think that's a key theme.
So kind of going back, so we could do this with Deloitte. It just seems like it's rehashing. We can go something with data. We could do something with the CIO partnering with the CFO. You could do something with digital transformation. So here, just so you have the higher level thing, then we can go deeper. The other piece I want to go into the data is, and it's self-serving for Coupa, but as we're getting more and more spend under management through our system, and now I think we're going to be at like almost $700 billion after Q4, that should start to be a value driver of our business that would create more shareholder value for us, because as we get more and more data, the Coupa 2.0 story is being able to sell that data, right?
Yeah.
So whether it's to our customers, because now they can benchmark what they're paying for certain things versus what other people in the Coupa ecosystem are paying, or whether it becomes like a bellwether report of here's what we're seeing in the manufacturing vertical, here's what we're seeing in healthcare, here's what we're seeing in financial. So I really want to start playing up the data story more and the value of
So
the data.
Those things all go together.
Yeah.
Partnering with the CIO, digital transformation, getting value from
Completely
data, they all go together. What if your dinner with James tonight was like, hey, look, I did this already for Forbes, and I'm sure that you don't want to repeat the same story that Forbes is going to write. Okay, so let's just talk tonight, and I'll tell you kind of what's on my mind, and maybe we can come back with a new set of questions for an interview. Yeah. But I'm.
So we can give James the questions.
Okay.
So if we want, we can. So James is a friend of mine, just so you know.
He is? Yeah, okay. Is that how you got invited onto the board?
Yeah,
okay.
That's because it was, if you look at the names on, they're all Fortune 500. Well, for the most part, Fortune 500 CFOs. So yeah. So
and you got in there. Are you going to go to the events?
Yeah, no, I'm definitely going to. And part of what I'm trying to do for myself this year, so kind of my journey here is get the company ready to be a public company, take the company public, do all the stuff, like the secondary, the convert. So all of that stuff is done. Build up all the relationships. I think we have 14 analysts covering us now. There's going to be 17 within a couple weeks. Mm-hmm. Tony's taking on more there. So that engine is kind of taking place now. Mm-hmm. So the heavy lifting is done. So what I'm trying to do now is get out. And this is why I did the Wall Street Journal thing. So Sonny, who works there, said, you should if you can get on this Wall Street Journal Council, you should, because it's a people that's forward thinking. People look to these people. And then that's why I called James. It's like, hey, it's a stretch for me to be on the CFO Council, given the other names on here, but can you do anything? And he's a partner at Deloitte, which is a sponsor. Yeah. So that's how I got onto it.
Oh, well, nicely done.
Yeah, it's a bit of this.
And he's a reporter also?
No, he's a partner.
He's a partner.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's not a reporter.
Oh, I thought he was positioned to us as a journalist when we were on the call with Patricia trying to figure out like the ask and the questions and the timing. No, he's not. Okay.
No, he's just not a partner. like I said, he's a friend of mine, so I
Okay.
can go to him and say, here's what we want to do,
Okay.
and he's fine. That's why I said that because I was really surprised these came from them.
I know. When I read them, I'm like, well, we could almost write this interview based on what we did before.
Yeah.
But I thought it was going to be a live interview with you over the phone, and he was going to be a reporter. So I wanted to, get the answers really tight and polished.
Yeah, I think we
that.
could literally just hand it to him.
Really?
If we wanted to go that deep and just say, here's the part, whatever the topic was, we could give them the 6 questions. We could transcribe the answers, and they would put that into the Wall Street Journal. I mean, we can control this thing.
Okay. All right. Well, they're not bad writers. I've been rewriting a lot of stuff from other pubs that people have handed in that's been horrific, and we would never want to be associated with. But I read through Deloitte's work, and it's good.
Okay.
So I would trust them. But if there's an opportunity to control it ourselves, that's certainly worth
I'm a control freak. So.
mentioning to Orlando. Yeah. So I don't know if it would be a byline for you, or we'll just give it to them and they're going to put a byline on it.
Yeah, if you look, you probably looked at it more than I have. Well, actually, you have looked at it because I haven't looked at it at all. Well, are they most Q&A type things? Are they?
Most of them are Q&A, so that's what I thought. Most of them are they're. The bylines all come from Deloitte partners, and then when they do someone that's not Deloitte, it's a Q&A format with a CFO.
Okay.
So I was envisioning that that's how this was going to end up.
Okay. I can flesh that out. Because this is one thing I just got from being part of that. It's like Mark Benioff for Salesforce. He's written like a byline. And then what they do is they put them all together. And they send them out to all the people that belong to the Wall Street Journal Council.
Nice.
That's why I thought it was more bylines. But maybe this is the CFO Council, CEO Council.
Uh-huh.
So maybe the CEO one is more, where they write their own articles, or bylines, or
well, they probably all have people.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I'm
the
sure.
hell.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like that. Could I borrow that to show to Orlando and then bring it back to you? That's cool.
So what is the best way? I mean, we can go through this. Do we want to come up with? I can
fix that if you're okay with it.
This? I think it's really good. I mean, I only had a couple comments. So one of them was, do you ever talk to Raja by chance?
Yes.
Okay, because she's talking at a conference in a couple weeks about AI.
I didn't know that.
And I just want to make sure I don't conflict any of these messages here. Because,
Okay.
I mean, we are starting to do some AI. So I'm kind of on AI
I'm kind of not clear. Yeah, because I just did a profile of Raja, but it's more of a as a person and executive profile. I did something for a CMO pub with Shandar, and he talked a lot about AI, but I'm a little unclear about where we are with machine learning, AI, how much of it is actually in the product right now.
So I think it's really early. But the one thing I was going to say is maybe we might need to change the tone a little bit of this to say that, because we're doing stuff. So I don't want people to look at this and go, I thought Coupa was doing AI, and we're not.
I don't want that to happen either. So that was my concern when I was doing the interview with Shandar. I don't want to position us as having all this AI, and then people are like, no, you don't. But I mean, we're the same as everybody, right? Like you point out, it's super early. People are just getting ready. And I think it is crucial as we prepare for bringing AI into the organization that the CIO and the CFO are going to partner. So I don't know if you're having challenges here, but we were tasked with creating stories out of data. And we've had a tremendous amount of difficulty getting good data out of our system. And I think, if we're really we've had to pull people off product to get the data. We need a dedicated, data scientist, machine learning engineer. If we're really going to get insights from data, we need that team. So I don't know how you're building it here, but whatever you're doing, you can probably teach other people.
Maybe the tone that could be a little different is it's almost akin to before you run, you got to walk.
Yeah.
And if you don't, in order for you to be able to really harness what's coming in AI, you have to have a solid data foundation. Maybe that's the way we switch it. Because I don't want to tool on AI like we do here.
What do you mean tool?
Well, speak badly about it. Because, like, for example, there's not a whole lot going on in AI and finance. Well, if I'm an investor, and I'm looking at this from an investor standpoint, not so much a prospect perspective, but then they're going to go, well, isn't Coupa doing AI? So I don't want it to be conflicting.
Change it to early days kind of language.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So I think the general tone should be, before you run, you got to walk, and in order to harness what's coming in AI, you have to have the right data structure and building blocks, and then we talk about the building blocks.
Yeah.
And then maybe even in here we say, in Coupa, maybe we say, Coupa's already built these building blocks, and that's why we're starting to move on to AI and other things.
Okay.
But I think we need to talk to Raja. I haven't done it yet, but
just vet it through there.
Yeah, just to make sure we don't have conflicting messages.
Okay.
Sure. She may say, AI is everything, the data story's old. I personally don't believe that.
Actually, I can tell you what she told me in the interview I just did with her. The most exciting trend right now is applying the power of machine learning to a wide variety of problems. We're reaching a point in time where we have massive amounts of data and the computing power to mine them for patterns and insights. At Coupa, we have a data warehouse of over 570 billion in business spending transactions, data that's unavailable anywhere else. We're using that to deliver what we call community intelligence, operational, supplier, and commodity insights that allow our customers to make faster, more informed decisions. This is incredibly exciting. We're doing things never before done in this space.
Yeah.
So she doesn't even use the word AI.
Yeah, she's using machine learning.
Machine learning. So I have another client who the whole business is based on machine learning, and I work with the CTO there, and my impression from that is that we are mostly in machine learning right now.
Yeah.
Which is going to, eventually, the more data, the more learning, it's going to get more into full-blown AI and more use cases. But right now, true AI use cases are pretty few and far between. Most of them are machine learning, and then only the really big companies who have invested in the engineers, the tech stack, the compute power. So we're talking the Googles, the Facebooks, the Amazons of the world are doing AI. But the rest of us still need to be building that tech stack and the capabilities.
Yeah. I think you bring up a great point. It probably, the framework is probably data, machine learning, and then AI on top of it. You know what I mean?
So this guy says that the architecture is the most important thing of all. Let's see if I can tell you what he said.
Yeah, no, I believe that.
It's that he said if you don't get your architecture right from the beginning, if you don't plan for a future in which you're going to have more data than you can possibly imagine, and you're going to be running more algorithms than you can probably imagine, because for their company, they run 10,000 algorithms. And he said an algorithm only lasts maybe a year. You have to keep writing new ones because the data underneath you is continually changing. So you have to imagine your machine learning infrastructure. You have to have so many machines so that you can scale up and down across, all these algorithms, all this data that's coming in, and see it in different ways. So he feels like that's the most critical thing that people need to be building right now is the physical machine infrastructure to handle massive volumes of data and tons of algorithms.
Yeah. So the way that we talk about it's capture is a little different. Is capturing the data.
Mm-hmm. That's critical.
So, you got to capture it, right?
Absolutely. And some people are still not there with that yet, right?
No. So capturing the data, this is probably what this first one should be, is capturing the data. And we capture it because it's easy to use.
Yeah.
Right? And then it's then the second one is the architecture and a framework by which you can normalize the data.
Do we say enough about that there, or could you put more?
So here I think we could say is the data architecture, so that you're building the data architecture so that you can normalize all the data sets. by which you can start running machine learning against it, because that's what we do. So we have the risk aware, right now, where it's the supplier risk management. So where we're making sure that supplier A is the same supplier A that's referenced in this other company or other data set. So then what happens is, and this is very simple, it could be an address, right? They both have the same address, but they have two different names. So over time, they would learn that, okay, that's the same supplier.
Right.
So that's the machine learning. But it's because you have the ability to capture all the data in a normalized table or structure so that you can compare it.
What does that take from an infrastructure point of view?
Well, it's from a data architecture. It's being able to, once again, it goes back to accessing it. So if you think about, so the first thing is access. If you look at companies that we sell to, they'll have multiple silos of data, right? So GE, for example, could have 50 different ERPs. They could have 20 Oracles, 15 NetSuites, 10 SAPs. So right now, nobody has a data architecture where they sit on top of the ERPs. All of the procurement or spend is done within that individual ERP. So they don't know what everybody else across the organization is doing. So from a data architecture perspective, is we sit on top of the ERPs. So we can drill down, gather all the data, and then bring it back up into one common architecture / table / what's the other right word? Repository, I guess. And then make sure that we're comparing the same thing. What's this? It's not a table. It's not I mean, it's
Is it a
definitely
warehouse? Is it a
it's
lake?
like,
Data
yeah,
lake?
It's almost like a database, I guess, where you can pull all the data into one common database. And the only way you can do that is through a SaaS cloud architecture, right? If you have it on all on-prem systems, there's no way for the data to talk to each other, right? There's just no way to extract the data.
So this is a massive challenge for companies. If they've been lagging in SaaS applications, they're going to be even further behind when it comes to machine learning and AI, right?
Yeah, they don't even have the ability to do it. So that kind of goes back to the digital transformation, right?
Yeah.
On-prem systems are dead. You have to move to cloud-based architectures, right? Only cloud-based, and you kind of you capture some of that in here.
But I think we could strengthen it.
You can't get the data out, right? Or it's going to be a massively manual process that's not going to be real time. And if you're making decisions off of data that's 6 to 12 months old, you've already missed the boat, right? You need real time, actionable data, which isn't captured there.
We don't have a CIO, do we?
No.
What is our
plan? So,
well, what's our person now?
So it's Eric Tan.
And what's his role?
He is VP of Business Applications.
Okay.
So ultimately, I think he has the horsepower to be CIO. It's just we had this, just like everybody else, we had to run before we walk. So we didn't. Before I got here, we didn't have a centralized place for all business applications.
Yeah.
And as we talk about the COO thing, right, where all these different business processes intersect, nobody was managing the business systems topology. So each department was doing their own thing. So
that's one of the key things that probably a lot of companies need to do, right?
Yeah.
Is
exactly.
Pull it all together.
Yeah. So that was one of the ideas I was thinking about is, digital transformation, how to drive digital transformation within the organization.
I think that's a better interview.
And that could also hit the CIO, partnering with the CFO, but it's also, you could hit on the on-prem architecture versus the new cloud and what that enables you to do from an organizational standpoint.
But also having one person, it sounds like from what you just said, even if CIO, business systems, whatever, somebody's got to own that whole topology. And in a lot of organizations, that's not even done yet.
In bigger organizations, they do have a CIO for the most part. Middle-sized, like us, don't necessarily. But it can be in different places. Sometimes the CIO reports to the CFO, sometimes they report to the CEO. But I think that part of the story is more the partnering that you were talking about. But we didn't have it. So for smaller, mid-sized emerging companies, they need to have one place to put it.
Okay.
Larger companies almost always have.
They all have one guy who owns the whole portfolio.
Usually.
Or lady who owns the whole portfolio. Okay.
So, but they may not be driving it from a digital perspective, right? They may be the one that's responsible, but not anybody that's pulling it together from the ability to mine the data, apply machine learning, and then eventually do the AI that we were talking about. So every company's in a different stage of that digital transformation.
Yeah.
Right? You've got, like, going back to the laggards, right? You got the 2/3 that are starting to do something. You got the 1/3 guy that's, I'm going to retire soon and I'm not going to take the headache. So, anyhow, I think there's something there from digital transformation.
I mean, it sounds like, so for my job, I probably read 50 articles a day.
Okay.
And most of them are pretty opaque. I mean, I think everybody understands they need to make a digital transformation. So I've read a ton of articles like that, but far fewer of actual concrete things you need to do to get here from where you are now. So that's where I think, some of the things you're saying are unique and valuable. And what I would say, we would want to talk to the guy, because I think there's a great mass of people who are convinced, like, okay, yeah, I know I need to do it. What do I do?
Yeah.
And it sounds like what we're almost saying is, if you haven't done SaaS, you're already behind. And you've got to now not just think about, like 2 years ago, you needed to think about going to the cloud. If you're just getting started now, you need to think about how you build it for machine learning and AI. It's not just cloud anymore. You've got to think, because that's the next phase.
Right.
Is that right?
Yeah, how are you going to harness that data and make real-time actionable decisions that drive?
Right, so it's not just swapping on-prem for cloud anymore, which is kind of where people were with it before.
No, I mean, you need to have a multi-year strategy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what we see a lot of people starting with, and this is the self-serving comment, is Coupa, because it's relatively easy and a high degree of success. So a lot of people are jumping off with Coupa to create the momentum within the organization for this digital transformation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually, in fact, the truth in many cases. So,
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's probably the best next topic, or something that you wanted to. I mean, this captures some of these things as well.
Yeah. So I can polish that one up, and with some of the material that you just gave me. Do you want to? Well, what should we do with our time here?
So I think
you're going to meet with James.
I'm going to meet with James, but I think we
tell him we don't want to do that.
I don't think so. And I'm going to ask him who gave him those questions, because I don't think he did that. So I just want to make sure I'm not.
I don't think we did. No, in fact, I'm sure we didn't, because we met with Patricia. So, you told, last time I saw you, you told us about the opportunity, and then I took it back to Orlando, and he's like, find out more about it. And so we set up a call with Deloitte to get all the details so that we could make sure that we were preparing you and making sure you were taking full advantage of it. And they said, well, we're going to send you the questions. So,
okay, so
and we waited and followed up. They came to us from Deloitte. We did not give questions to Deloitte.
Yeah. Patricia or somebody else.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll talk to him, but where do you think we should take it? I mean, what I would rather end up with in X amount of time is here's the thing that we want to promote, because this will be going. People that will be reading this will be the Fortune 500 CFOs, right? So it's gonna apply to the people that we want to go after, and obviously we want the end result for them to go, oh, how come I'm not looking at Coupa? I mean, we don't want to make it a commercial for Coupa,
right.
But we want to at least start increasing the brand, and I'm going to start going to all these events, etc.
Good. Then you'll come back with a lot of story ideas, because you'll find out what people don't know and where they're at.
Exactly. So I don't know. Maybe I guess I'm looking for you for maybe some advice. But should we go down the digital transformation?
Yes.
What that means, how to do it, and then use that one. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay, so I'll talk to James today. I'll get his bio, because I don't want to send you guys running down the hoop.
But why don't you give me your talk track around digital transformation today and say he says, okay, go ahead and make up the questions, then I'll make them up.
So it's kind of, I can't say I've done a ton of work, but I think the sequencing of events would be, maybe it's stating the obvious, right? But the day of the on-prem world, is dead. People are moving to the cloud, and here's what the cloud enables you to do. And then the first part of moving to that digital transformation one is to build your framework, right? And that's to have one person that's looking at the topology of all your business applications across the organization. So that kind of goes back to the
Can you start
framework.
perhaps by unpacking the term digital transformation? Because that in itself often is just rolled out as a term and not explained. What exactly do we mean by digital transformation?
Yeah,
we sure hear it a lot. What do we mean?
Yeah, it's a good point. You could probably do a whole article on
just on that.
Yeah, it's the part of that. It's the automation, right? Trying to automate as much as you can from what you do on the day-to-day basis. Then I think from there, once you've automated as much as you can, do you have the right data architecture so you can start using the data to make better decisions in real time? And
do you think about that when you're automating?
Yeah.
So when you're automating, do you think about the architecture? Or do you just automate first and then think about
a lot of people have just automated specific things, right? So I think the historical digital thing was, okay, the sales team says I need this tool, right? This is kind of the Coupa thing. And this happens in bigger organizations too, but usually there is a CIO. The CIO is probably only focusing on the top 5 initiatives. Mm-hmm. There's all sorts of other stuff happening, right? So it still seems like
shadow IT.
Yeah, shadow IT. Exactly. Mm-hmm. That's a great word. I love that word. But maybe the sales force is doing their own thing. But they're not really thinking about, maybe this isn't the right solution because I want to integrate with my front end marketing tool, or maybe I shouldn't be using this because it's not going to be the right tool for a deal desk and how we close deals and how we report on it. So the next step is, I think if you were to start from today, I do think you had some shadow IT people doing their own individual things that maybe weren't on top of mind to the CIO. Mm-hmm. But it's having, what is your IT digital framework, digital architecture, however you want to call it, who is setting that agenda, right? So that the organization, it's one of the things I always talk about in my audit committee, is people, processes, and systems to drive scale and predictability. Mm-hmm. But who's looking at those cross-departmental interfaces to make sure that you're doing it once and doing it right? Because what will end up happening, we had the issue here, a small Coupa, where organizations had 3 different tools. Mm-hmm. They're paying for 3 different tools. Mm-hmm. Well, one tool could have done the whole thing, right? Mm-hmm. So you get this systems proliferation, as I call it.
Because of people buying tools, going out and buying their own tools.
Yeah, sometimes it's not even just, sometimes it's not even just engineering buys a tool, right? But maybe it's, the engineering team in Pune, India buys something because it works for them, and then the one here is buying something, and the one in Dublin is buying something else. You know what I mean? Where there's no one that's really managing it, so you just end up with all these systems, all these costs, and they're not talking to each other. So when you figure out what the framework is, what you want to enable is each key decision maker have mm-hmm. real-time data, right? So not only is it automating it, but where it's giving real-time, what I call dashboarding. It's kind of a Six Sigma GE type thing, but mm-hmm. where each guy can look each day as to what are the key KPIs that I use to manage my part of the business, so that I can look at it and course correct. So, for example, in this one you mentioned the renewals, right? Mm-hmm. So if one of my dashboards is, hey, Caterpillar's spend through the system has gone down 90%. Mm-hmm. Well, that's a huge red flag, something that I probably need to get on that day. Does that mean they're not happy? Is the system down? Is something broken? Mm-hmm. So that ultimately, I guess the end result can be different for each key decision maker, but it can be something that drives a key result in the business. In Coupa's case, it can be how do we drive more spend out of the equation, right? Yeah.
So to just pause a minute and let me recap what I think I heard you say. So it starts with automation, but digital transformation is not just letting people go out and buy tools to automate, different processes, that's not going to get you where you need to go. You need everything to be integrated and rolling up first into these dashboards where each business owner can see what they need to see. So maybe that's your first thing that you're thinking about is like, okay, well, somebody has to get control, like the person you said that we hired.
Yeah.
So did he? He came in and he looked across the whole organization at what tools were out there, and then I suppose he worked with you to say what is the information that we need in these dashboards.
That's right.
And then how do we pull it all together? And I'm guessing, just from things that I've seen in emails, that some tools were dropped and different tools were brought in order to either consolidate or to deliver up into that dashboard that the management wanted to see in each business area.
Yeah, kind of going back to your point of defining digital transformation. Digital automation isn't digital transformation.
Right.
You can automate a task, but is that really going to help the entire organization work better? Somebody needs to be following how that data flows throughout the organization, right? Because, going back to my CFOs, now the COO, all departments interact with other ones. So there needs to be...
Oh, that's your class that you want to teach.
Yeah, exactly. But I come back to it all the time. It's so obvious to me, and most people don't get it. But I think that could be part of that, the story, or even the Q&A, is, we hear a lot about about automation, but how is digital automation different from digital transformation, right? And you could talk about...
And you say yes.
Exactly.
Yes, because automation is great. Now I have black line and it closes the books for me. I'm transformed.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, and then it goes back to the architecture, somebody owning the systems topology.
Okay, so somebody owns the systems topology. How long did it take you to accomplish that whole thing here? What's the person's name again?
Eric Tan.
Eric Tan. How long?
This is a multi-thing. I think
multi-year.
I think most companies, like for us, it'll be probably 2 years because we're small. But I think if you're a larger Global 2000 company, you should have a 3 to 5 year roadmap. Because to implement Coupa, for example, like at a Caterpillar, that's a year, and that's just one small piece of.
Okay. Oh, so you mean the whole digital transformation is multi-year? But how long did it take you to round up the whole
Probably 3 to 6 months.
Okay, what did Eric do when he came in? That was his first thing.
Yeah, it was just take inventory. What do we
have?
Take
inventory.
What are all the things we have? And then starting to look at it from talking to the business owners. Where are the pain points? So for us, for example, one of the biggest pain points, so it's the number one thing he's working on, is the deal desk and what we call CPQ, which is configured price quote. And so right now, what happens is sales guys try to get a quote, so they give out to the customer. But we have so many different entitlements. Source to pay, procure to pay, contract lifecycle management, trade extension, spend 360, that they can't self-generate a quote. So it has to be manually done. So then it gets big bottleneck, the deal desk, right? All these people want quotes, but it takes them 3 to 4 days to get a quote. Sales guys are getting pissed because, I got a customer, I'm trying to close a deal, why is this taking so long? And then we do the quote, and it's wrong, it has errors, because it's so manual. So what we're trying to do is automate that. So we have to come up with new price books. We have to say, which products are compatible. What are the rules for discounting, right? So it's automation, but it's digital transformation in the sense of it's hitting multiple groups, right? It's sales teams initiating it, deal desk is doing it, then it goes into revenue, right? Can we do this discounting without tripping revenue recognition rules? Okay, then that data, that same record is used for renewals, so the customer success team uses it. So for us, it's a huge pain point, and people are screaming, yelling every quarter. That's an example.
But it's not like you could just go out and get an automated CPQ system.
There are systems. And that's
but don't you have to have all the things set up to flow into it because it's connected to other things?
Yeah. So there's integration. It integrates into Marketo, it integrates into Salesforce, it integrates into NetSuite, and then it integrates into our Zendesk-like solution from the CRM. So yeah, it's a key thing. So somebody has to architect that, right? And it's cross-departmental. But that's a perfect example of transformation versus automation, right? Because it's something that's important to multiple stakeholders. It's not just
I mean,
sales.
would it even be possible to just plug this system in if you didn't have all the data flowing from all these different systems?
You could just do and that would be automation.
That would be
Right?
automation.
It's like we automated it, but we're really not helping the business run more efficiently, taken as a whole. We're optimizing for that one group, the sales group, but then what's good if we didn't transform it, then what would happen is somebody would have to go in and manually take the data out of the CPQ and enter it into NetSuite, and somebody else have to take the data out manually, put it into the renewal system, and then when you start putting multiple manual inputs, you're going to make mistakes. Right?
Okay.
And there's no source of truth from a record perspective.
Okay, so you're trying to have like data flowing around the business like blood flows through a human body. It animates the whole body, not just
Exactly.
your fingers or whatever. How do you do that?
That's why.
That's digital transformation.
Yeah, that's why you need to put your framework together, right? Okay, here's all the key business processes, and how is that data going to flow from one organization to the other that's actionable for them, right?
And do you draw a picture? How do you do it?
I always go back to my simple three, right?
Your three processes.
The three processes.
But don't you like sketch like?
Then you would diagram.
This data comes out of here. It goes to here.
So we would basically say, for this one I'm talking about, is the first piece of data is the price book, right? So what's our price book that the sales guys go to sell? So we want to simplify this as much as possible. The fewer things you have, the less. So this is done by marketing. So this is, do you know Sonny? Well, Sonny owns the price book, right?
And the new guy he hired.
So then once the marketing does the sales book, then the sales reps, in a perfect world, will access the price book. Okay, they'll do their thing. And then the output from that, it hopefully would be a quote. Then the quote, this flow isn't meant to be perfect, I'm just using space. We'll go to deal desk. If deal desk approves it, right, it goes to the customer. If they don't, it can go to multiple places, but likely it will go to finance. It could be a rev rec issue, it could be the discount's too high, right? And then either finance will reject it,
and it goes back.
Then it goes back, right? Fix it, right? Or if finance says, okay, I looked at it, great, I approve it, it goes to the customer. And then the customer, well, they could do nothing, right? They could not buy it, or they could whatever. But then let's say they buy it, then it could go to legal, right? Because it needs to be put into a contract. It may not. So legal isn't always there, but that's one option. Or it could just go to, then it would go back to deal desk to close the deal, right? So then they become a customer.
Would it go from legal to deal too? Should there be a little line there?
Could be there. Yeah.
Okay.
And then deal desk will provision the instance, right? So give the customer their entitlement so they can start running it. And then it would also go to professional services or to the SI partner to do the implementation. And then the next piece it would go to is the CSM team, customer success team. And they would be responsible for the renewals. They'd also be responsible for tracking the KPIs, right? Are they using the system? Are we delivering the value that we said? And then to do this is something completely different, but this is Amazon Web Services where we host it. So in the instance, on a go-forward basis, that's continually kicking information down here so that they can see So the CSM, so the key decision maker here, so this is the CSM team, tracking renewals and customer success, right? This is what they care about. Is the customer getting the value? Are they implemented? This whole quoting process kind of leads to near-term pipeline, right? What deals are out there.
So is that going to Salesforce?
Yeah, so that's, exactly, salesforce.com, right? So that's another system. That's a system. This is the CPQ system.
So could you take a green pen and draw around what the CPQ system would cover?
Yeah, so this price book, quote, deal desk. So CPQ stands for configure, right? So
Price quote.
Price quote.
I learned that last time I was here.
Yeah.
but a lot of stuff sits outside of that. So just automating that doesn't solve the whole problem.
No, there's multiple different systems. That's why somebody has to own the whole topology.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
if somebody wasn't doing that, they might buy a system that does exactly what they need, but isn't going to interface to these others. So they're doing it in a vacuum.
Mm-hmm.
Sales might just use Salesforce, and then Ravi could be using his own customer success tracking, right? So then, if Ravi's using his own, well, I guess it's Mark Riggs now. If he's using his own system to track it, well, then the sales reps may not know there's an issue, right? Because the other thing is,
does that go back to the sales reps? Where does that connect back?
It could go back to the sales rep. It could go back to the professional services guy.
Yeah.
So sometimes you have to go back and resell the customer. Sometimes you just need to get them up and running. So it can go multiple paths from there.
Okay. So somebody needs to own this whole picture. And that's
Eric.
That's Eric,
yeah.
But you're closely partnered with him in this.
Oh, yeah, he reports to me.
Okay.
Well, he reports to Roger, who reports to me. But he's the guy longer term that I think would be the CIO.
Okay. So describe...
and that's because there's really nobody operational here, right? That goes back to the CFO, COO thing. Because I'm probably the only one who's looking at it from this perspective, at least in the organization right now.
Okay.
Hopefully that will change.
And that's because you're operationally focused. So what is that CIO... because we're talking mostly to enterprise and Fortune 5.
Right.
What does that partnership need to look like? The CFO-CIO partnership.
Yeah, I think they need to be pretty tightly aligned. Ultimately, you want to drive shareholder value, right? That's the very basic statement.
But do CIOs think about that?
Oh, they should.
They should, sure.
Should, but it may be,
do they?
Be secondary to them.
What do you think they think about first and foremost?
It depends on the organization, what type of company they are.
But and
I
the
think
person.
They're trying to look at, and the person. It's hard to say because there's different CIOs, right? There's the forward-leaning ones that are going to be like all about, the people, processes, and systems to drive scale, right? That's what they should be thinking about. How do I drive scale in the organization? How do I reduce costs? And how do I enable the organization to operate more efficiently?
Mm-hmm.
That's what they should be thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes, you get the guys that you get people that want to do the minimum to get by. You have people, so it really does depend on people. But that's what they should be thinking about. How do I enable the organization to make better decisions faster and reduce cost and drive shareholder value? That's really what they should be thinking about.
So there's kind of a Venn diagram there with what you're thinking about. They're not thinking so much about shareholder value as you are, but most of the rest of it is in alignment.
Yeah, you should be able to take, kind of do my 3 things on the key processes, right? Whatever organizations they are, the one common thing that should drive all organizations, whether it's the CIO, CFO, could be anybody, any C-level exec, this should be shareholder value.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt about it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He may have certain other things that are top of mind. He may have other things that are top of mind. But the ultimate goal of what everybody's doing should overlap there at shareholder value.
Okay. But the CIOs may not necessarily... I'm pretty sure the CEO and the CFO usually think that way, right? More normally, but maybe not so much the CIO, or...
It depends on the.
Do you know any great CFO, CIO partners? Have you seen any at customer companies or people you know? Do you know very many CIOs?
I really don't. Sounds bad. I'm sure we could get some, but it'd be a great webcast.
What?
Webinar or something, panel.
How to partner?
Yeah, I mean, even for like for Inspire.
Mm-hmm. We have talked along those lines before about CIO, CFO partnerships, but it's a continually evolving discussion because of what we're talking about with the technology and being prepared for machine learning and AI. It's more important than ever, right?
Absolutely.
What's your partnership like with Eric? What works? I mean, he reports to you, so it's not really a partnership, but how does that relationship work, and how would you, if he became CIO today, would that change?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it would be, no. He was CIO, report to me anyways, but. So the first thing is I think it's a 1 to 3 year plan. You have to assess where you're at, stating the obvious. And then you want to go after the ones that have highest impact, lowest effort, right? Where can you get your quick wins and then build upon it?
Mm-hmm.
So if you give me a list of 10 things, I would say, okay, sort these by cost versus value, right?
You would tell the CIO that?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the lowest cost that drives the highest amount of value? Or have the discussion of how do we prioritize these? Because we can't be all things to everybody. There's a certain capital constraints, cost constraints, expense constraints, whatever you want to call it. So how do we work together to prioritize what's going to drive the organization?
Okay.
And
so that's what you did here with Eric.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's where the partnership is.
Uh-huh.
Is leveraging the expertise of the CIO to identify where the biggest opportunity lies, and then working on kind of the prioritization. What investment can we make?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the role of CFOs. For every dollar of incremental investment you can make, where do you make it?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So part of it's technology. It could be hiring more sales guys. It could be doing more marketing things.
Mm-hmm.
It could be hiring more engineers. It could be all sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
So there's
do you feel like technology is one of the first places people should be looking rather than headcount?
Well, I think everybody should. Yeah, for sure. Right. That absolutely. That's why I have the people, processes, and systems to drive scale and predictability. Because whenever people come to me for additional heads, there's two things that come into my mind. One, is there anybody in your organization you should fire? That's the first thing. If you have low-hanging fruit, go fire those people. It's a forcing mechanism. Hopefully they don't need the forcing mechanism, but most people do. And the second thing is, can I automate this process so I don't have to hire the person?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because automation is always going to be better than, well, not always, but will often be better than a person.
Right. If you're adding people to process paper or
Exactly.
to run a process that's inefficient.
Because they're manual processes. Right?
Yeah.
That goes back to the automation.
Right.
So
those are things like when you're listening to a request to hire somebody and you're hearing, well, I need someone to, file these documents, and as soon as you hear paper,
right,
you think
inefficiency.
Systems.
Yeah,
This is
exactly.
maybe not a people thing, it's a systems thing. Okay, so the CIO is your partner here.
So I think what the CIO does is the CIO sets the technology kind of priorities, right? Here's all the things I need to do. Here's the ones that are going to be my top 2 for 3. And then they work with the CFO to determine, because the CFO is not just looking at technology investments, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's looking at people, he could be looking at marketing, he could be looking at all sorts of things, M&A activities. So there's a certain amount of capital that you have each year to invest, right, in different areas. Technology is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where the CIO and CFO really have to partner.
Yeah.
Right, is where do these technology things fit into all the other different needs of the organization? How much can we invest? And then from a CFO perspective, I'm always like, okay, it could be anybody, right? It's like, oh, all right, CIO, if we're going to do this, what are you committing back to me? I'm going to give you $3 million to go implement Coupa.
Mm-hmm.
What is your criteria you're going to get back to me? And that's how we do our sales, right? We find the criteria. So we give the CIO the ability to report back to the CFO what the commitments were for that technology investment.
Okay. So coming back to our original question, what is digital transformation? It's getting data, really, it's beyond automation. It's getting data to flow through your organization like blood through a human body. That requires a partnership with the CIO and CFO, requires you to have a 1 to 3 year plan, it requires you to assess and then come together and prioritize. The two functions come together and prioritize with shareholder value as the highest goal for both, the goal that unites both of them, and then figure out, where do we invest? And you're thinking about people. When you hear people, you think, is that technology or people? So that's part of your partnership as well, is like, hey, they're telling me we need to hire here. Is there some technology that we could bring instead? So you should be always talking. Should the CIO report to the CFO?
Of course, I'm going to say yes, but no, it doesn't have to be. It does. Every organization is different.
Yeah. Who should they report to?
I would say either it could be CFO, COO, president, CEO, depending on the organization.
But so, there would definitely be some advantages to them reporting into the CFO/COO.
Yeah, you could say that. Every organization, certainly, like you're in a banking, they're going to report to the CEO because security and all that stuff is so important that they're going to want it. The CIO, the impact to the business can be so huge if the CIO screws up that they're going to want to report directly to the CEO.
Okay.
So I think it's a risk issue.
Okay.
So if you have a huge technology risk in your organization because you've got 50 million people's credit cards, you have their banking information, you have their social security, that's like high risk.
That's going to keep the CEO awake at night.
That's right. And someone that's like us, it's probably not as big a deal. But yeah, then the other part of this is to make sure the end result is not just shareholder value, but that as the blood's flowing through the system, you're getting the right information to the right decision maker at the right time, right? Whether it's the VP of sales, whether it's the chief customer officer, or chief marketing officer,
okay.
Whatever it might be.
So good point. So we're not just trying to get the blood flowing. We're trying to get it flowing for the purpose of real-time information for
key decision making in the most efficient manner. Just not the heart pumps blood in the most efficient manner. We want to pump the data in the most efficient, so it gets to the right place.
Okay.
Right. If I want to hit a hammer, I got to get the blood to my hand. Right. If I want to walk, I got to get it to my feet. Whatever. Those are bad analogies, but
yeah. Okay. All right. I think that's good.
I like this. I mean, I know it's real rough, and you do a good job of taking all my
ideas
all over the map.
I didn't bring my camera, but could you take a picture of that little diagram? Is it okay?
It's an awful diagram.
Well, is it okay, do you think, to talk about our own process as we, what we uncovered? Yeah.
I have no problems.
Well, I don't. I think it's good. I think it's good to share.
Yeah. So which one do you want? Both of these, or?
Yeah, both.
Awful pictures. My handwriting's awful.
And I would have to have somebody do that for me, but it really makes the point of how automation, without thinking about the whole thing, only carves off a tiny piece of your problem, and in fact maybe creates bigger problems because you're just creating more silos of information. So I think what may have happened here, so you're going to have dinner with James.
Yeah.
What probably happened here is, so James isn't a reporter, but Deloitte does have journalists, like people that used to be journalists. And Forbes is journalism, so they probably did the same background research on you.
Okay.
So looking at everything that's out there, they came up with similar questions. Because if I were interviewing you, that's what I would do.
Yeah.
Let's look up this Todd Ford guy. Where's he been? What's he know? What's he written?
Yeah.
So they probably just were working for the same source material.
Okay, that's fine. That was literally why I asked the question. Did they come from them?
Yeah, I think they probably did similar background research.
Well, I'll talk to James too. Maybe there's a certain
Ask him
process we
where
have to run. And
came from. Yeah.
But when I said to him, it's like,
but it's good that you wrote that article, the COO article. Everybody's intrigued by that. It's a little provocative.
Yeah, exactly. No, but it's true.
Yeah.
At least I think it's true. I'm not saying I'm the be all end all for anything, but it's, you got the financial CFO, which I think is dead. But,
yeah. Okay. All right. So I'll polish up the other article. You'll let me know what happens with James.
Yeah, Patricia just sent us
a new invite.
Yeah. Literally just right now. Anyhow, I'll talk to him tonight. So
all right, and we'll see where we're going to go from there. Okay, I'm going to show this to Orlando and get it back to you. All right, thank you, Todd. Door open, shut. Okay.